So welcome to this Digigroup preparation video for 3-bet pots from the small blind. So the topic will be small blind 3 bets versus open, identifying turn barrel opportunities, incorrect turn sizing bets for value, and check raising on the flop. So the purpose of this video is to look through all of these and see if we can identify good spots and where we can improve. So what you will need, your 3 betting ranges for the small blind versus open from various positions, the villain's calling range from various positions, and at least obviously if we've got all these for the button, that will be a start, and if we can have more, that would be great too. So GTO Sims, I just request if anyone can do them using Pilesave or GTO Plus. It would be nice to have a couple in there just to help us on the GTO theory side. And thank you for watching. See you for this study session when it's upcoming. So I'll be going through 22 hands from the small blind, and I'll be just asking quick questions about what we need to be looking at in those spots and what we can look at when we're in our study session. So first hand, I'll just stop at the important parts that we get to. I won't go through the necessary everything. So aces on a Jack 10-6 rainbow. Small blind versus the high cut-off even, sorry. So is this a pot that we want to be either betting small or betting large? I think we want to be betting on a Jack high board. Could have a lot of hands. But the question with this one is, what size should we bet in when we bet? And what other hands would we want in our range to bet that size? So with a check raise, we're just happy to call. And when the 10 comes, are we happy to check or do we want to bet here? And the question here is it a poor bet sizing? Should we be betting all in here? Hoping to get calls from any jack, etc. So I think those are a couple of questions for that one. Next hand, aces versus the low jack open. So are we happy with a check raise? Is this a good spot to check raise? Is the question going to be for this hand? And when it's a big bet, do we just want to call? We don't need protection. See, those are some of the questions that we can think about. On a turn, do we want to be betting or checking? Is going to be the next question for that one. Ace King versus the hijack open. So question here, do we want to be betting on the Jack 5 board? Or is this the spot that we want to check? So the next question will be, do we have an opportunity to barrel here on a Jack 4-5 board? And if we're not using this hand, the question is, what hands would we want to be betting here with? So versus a low jack open, a squeeze. Obviously, it's a bit of a different box. It's going to be multi-way. So multi-way, do we want to be betting the range here, or should we be checking? And see a few questions on this one. Next bit is on the river. Once we hit a straight here, do we want to be betting? And are we missing value? Ace queen versus low jack open. Again, this is a good spot for us to see bet small. And the question here is, would we want to be turn barreling versus a low jack open? And what better hands have we got? And what could he be calling with? So, ace jack versus a button. So I think the question on this is a texture board that we want to bet big and check, or do we want to bet small? There's a few questions in this hand. So next question is, once we get a two pair, do we want to check or do we ever want to bet? And then the most important question here is, do we value bet and what size, and is checking a big blunder? Okay, so on to the next one. Ace 5 suited versus the button open. So, are we happy with a C bet on this one? And I think the important question on this one is, should we barrel in with our Ace 5? We've got an overcard and a gut shot. Or should we be checking? So, pocket kings versus the button. So again, 827, a low board. This is a good opportunity to check raise. And should the raise be bigger, is the question on this one. And once 9 hits, the question here is, should we be betting all in or checking? Which is a better option? Long term versus a button range. So kings versus low jack open. And we're happy to continue on a jack 2-6 with a C bet. I think the question here, as there's a ton of draws, should we be betting and what size? What size we should be betting? What would he be calling us with? And I think here, obviously, thin value bet is pretty poor, but we should we just be using it as a bluff catcher now? So next hand, kings versus the cut off. 887, and is this an ideal spot to check raise? And would this sizing make a difference to check raise or check calling? And should we be leading here as next question once we hit the full house? So compensated. So again, should we be checking here as it's a 10-eye board? And or could we bet? And then once we get to here, the question is, should we lead out and what size for? And then once he raises, should we be calling or shoving? Here. And then we can discuss obviously what ranges of the hands that we would then be calling with and raising with as well. Question here, should we be leading out normal range size? No, I think the question here, two questions. Should we be betting large here, as there's a number of boards on the number of draws on the board? Should we be betting larger or smaller as we're out of position? And what would be expected to call by? So and then once the backdoor flush comes in, the question is, should we value bet or use this as a bluff catcher to try and get some of his bluffs? So again, is this an opportunity to see bet? Question here, is this a good card for us to barrel on versus the button range? So the question for this bit is, should we be betting larger? And should we ever be betting checking on this hand here? And here, should we be ever leading or checking? Question for this one is, should we be barreling this card? We've got a gut shot and an overcard. Would this be a good spot for us to barrel on? And should we ever bluff this river? So again, is this a good spot for us to check raise or check call? And I think the second question is, do we value back on the larger size here? And obviously I think that was a misvalue bet, but what size should we be betting on the river once we get to it? So Is this the type of hand we still want to be c-betting? And do we just go to check call mode here? Can we bow out here? Or is this now a bluff catcher? And again, should we check call here, depending on the size? So Jack 10 seated. So are we happy with a c-bet range here? And the second question here is return. Should we continue betting and for what size? And obviously we'll have more questions as we go and watch the video. So is a spot we want to be c-betting with 10s. I think the question on this turn is, is this a good spot for us to barrel with 10s, or is this a good spot to check? So the question for this one, and is just in a multi-way pot, what kind of size should we be betting? Obviously we want to bet. We might have to want to check, but I would assume check would be the preferred option. What size? And is that size acceptable? And obviously I think the Western hand just plays out itself. And then the question there is, do we ever want to be raising, or are we always just happy to call? And the question is here, do we want to get the last bet in? Yeah? What are you doing? Just recording, I'll be about 2 minutes. So again, c-betting here, should we be c-betting on what side? And can we have a barrel here, or is this just now into a check call scenario? And the last hand, pocket sevens. Should we be c-betting here? And then the question here is, can we barrel, or is this always a check? And then the question there is, should we be calling once we check to? Are we giving up on too many hands if we don't? Okay. So thanks for watching. Obviously we'll be going through those hands in more detail. So I just wanted to raise a few questions, and it wasn't specifically about how I play them, but it was like just to get some talking points for when we have the study session. Thank you for watching.